Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get started, guys. Again, sorry for the snafu when it comes to the location. So this is the Rockwell office. We're doing the visualization roadshow. So what we're going to do is talk about all the visualization solutions that Rockwell has as a whole. So we're going to cover the PanelView products, Thin Manager, and all the different pieces that we have from both the mobility and the HMI front. So we brought down two guys that are coming down. So I'll let them introduce themselves. But if you guys have questions, feel free to be interactive. If you want the questions, it can be that or death by PowerPoint, like nobody wants to do that. So Chris, I'll let you introduce yourself, but I appreciate everybody in. There is lunch, and if you need anything, just let us know.
Hi everybody, I'm Chris Mason. I'm with Rockwell Automation, and I'm up from our Milwaukee, Wisconsin office. So they let me out of my cubicle to come and talk to all you fine folks and give an update on visualization. And so I'm a product manager for Versa U5000 industrial PC line. But beyond the PCs, we have a lot of other content to talk about in terms of the PanelView, mobile view, other industrial computers besides my product line, a couple of factory talk updates, and then a lot of this is going to shoehorn into the Thin Manager conversation. We have Mike Smoltz that's going to come up a little bit later to talk about some of the other equipment that's up here. So I did bring a lot of some toys here. Everything's up and functional. I got mobile view, I got PanelView, the newest PanelView, and Compact Logic 5380 controller. So please come up. If you want to play with anything, let us know, or just go ahead and do it. Any other questions, let me know. And then let's keep this interactive. If there's something you want to know more about, we can pause and answer questions as we go. But there's just a lot of stuff, so I'm going to kind of keep it moving here. And I don't want to bore you to death with PowerPoint, but you can't be from Rockwell without having a PowerPoint deck about 1 million slides long. So with that, I'll kind of jump into it. Just want to give a brief update of where we are at the entire product portfolio here. So this is on the operator interface. We call it electronic operator interface, or HMIs. And so we have a lot of them, right? And they're kind of each focus on a certain type of industry, a certain type of controller, PLC connectivity, different software packages used to write both the PLC code and also the HMI code. And so just kind of starting off at we kind of call it the component class HMI as the PanelView 800. This is the class of HMI that we use a lot for MicroLogix, Compact Logics L1, L2, and L3 connectivity. And this is programmed in our Connected Components Workbench software. So it's a free software package. It's the same software package to do a lot of things, including your controller programming for the MicroLogix. So I'm not going to talk a ton about that, but if you have any other questions on that, we can talk a little bit later. The main new updates and all the coverage I'm going to have today is on PanelView Plus 7 Standard and Performance. I'm kind of give an overview of what those are and the software package used to program those, along with some of the roadmap items. Beyond that, we have our newest offering. It's the PanelView 5000 series of products. So this is a completely new generation of products from Rockwell. There's the new way of programming them. Excuse me. There's new elements of connectivity to our ControlLogix and Compact Logics family of controllers. And so I'll get into a good amount of that since it's so new. Along with that, we have our mobile view offering, which I have a demo up here as well, which is a handheld mobile offering which can get your factory talk machine edition applications up and running for special types of machines in certain environments. And so we'll get into a little bit more about that in a bit. Besides from that, we have our other half of the business. And so PanelView, when you buy it, it's a relatively closed environment. It does one thing. It runs your application that you program either in Factory Talk Studio or Studio 5000 View Designer. And that's what it does. It's kind of a closed environment from that perspective. Our industrial PCs are different. They are completely open Windows 7 and Windows 10 based systems. And so these are primarily for running applications that the PanelView does not run natively. So be it Factory Talk Site Edition, our distributed SCADA HMI. Or things like RSV32 or any other application that you need to run on top of Windows, but in an industrial environment, something with long life cycle and robust components and all that stuff. So I'll get into kind of what those are and some of the newest offerings that we have.
What is your typical life cycle for some of the PCs?
So some of primarily we align with Intel's embedded roadmap, so it's usually 7 to 10 years. We will try to get in as early as possible on a new generation, and then Intel usually supplies chips no less than 7 years. Sometimes it's longer, but if you're thinking about PCs, 10 years is a long time, and so we recently just sort of phased out of Windows XP. But that was both a combination of Intel's CPU and also Microsoft kind of pulling the plug on XP, and so we try to end as long as possible, but also try to keep up to date as often as we can. So it's sort of that, but in that time frame. Yeah.
Do you have marine certifications on any of these monitors and PCs?
Not today. So we are. I do have a little bit of information about this later on. That we are investigating marine certification on some of the new View 5000 line and for the PC and the box-link client. So right now we're under investigation. We're seeing what it takes to get there with the PC. Primarily, the marine offerings we have today are on the PanelView side. I know there's a lot of increased shock and vibe and EMC and all these other requirements that go into actually getting marine. So it's kind of under investigation along some additional certifications I'll get into in a bit. So I'll start off with PanelView Plus 7. We have PanelView Plus 7 users in the room. All right, awesome. And so I'll kind of give just an overview of what it is, kind of where we came from, why is it called 7? What about PanelView Plus 6? What about the older systems? And I'll say, show what it's doing now and what we're kind of doing in the short roadmap perspective here. So PanelView Plus 7 is our flagship FactoryTalk View Machine Edition based HMI, and so that's using FactoryTalk Studio on the design side on your workstation to design the application, and on the terminal itself, it's running FactoryTalk View Machine Edition. And so beyond the environment that you develop the application in, that's going to be important a little bit later on because we have a couple changes in some of the other lines. But we have two hardware lines, I guess you could say. The standard is our kind of the offering for simpler machines or things you don't need a lot of bells and whistles on. It's our lower price point offering. And if anybody's familiar with our PanelView Plus 6 compact offering, there's a couple things you have to keep in mind when you're using that offering in terms of amount of controllers you can connect to, amount of screens, alarms, stuff like that. But it's also the lower cost point product out there. And its kind of older brother is the performance model. And so this, you get a couple additional hardware characteristics, such as the device level ring, dual Ethernet, additional screen sizes, and additional performance. And so that's why we have two different models there. So getting into this, and again, there's a long history of PanelView. It's been around for many years, and over time we have to do refreshes. We have to get up to more modern technology on the hardware side that's actually running it on the terminal itself. And so with that, we have several generations that we're currently supporting, but we always want to provide as much as we can for migration from one generation to the next. And so this is a quick graphic. So if anybody's using PanelView Plus 6 today, there's a migration path to a PanelView Plus 7 terminal. Most cases, it's exactly the same cutout for your machine, so you can just rip out one and put the next one in. And in some cases, there's an increase in resolution. I don't expect anybody to read the fine text on the screen. It's a migration story. And so from migrating from a lower resolution screen to a higher resolution screen, there's sometimes a little bit of work you have to do to make sure that you're making use of all that resolution. You don't want to necessarily just stretch it, because sometimes that can look a little bit bad with text and graphic elements. So you can make use of the additional resolution, but we want to make sure there's guides out there on how to do that. So with PanelView Plus 7, you usually think of it as just a way to put buttons on a screen and connect to a controller, and something that a PanelView is always sort of just done, right? But there's a lot of other stuff that comes with the platform that some folks don't use, some people don't know about, that they don't know that they have. And so in terms of content that you can put on a screen, you can really get some additional pieces of content on on your application, like PDF manuals. If you want to pull up a reference manual for maintenance to use on the panel, just add it to your project, and there's a built-in PDF viewer you can view it right from the PanelView. Same with some of the email connectivity, some data log backup. Sure.
Would you guys ever have a PDF writer? Or does your reader do a writer? Because we run into like generating, we'll do a calibration on our equipment. And then to hand to the customer, we want to hand them a PDF and not a Word document that
Right.
someone could go in and change.
As I understand it, it's just a read only aside from this, but if we can export a good amount of data, so it's probably gonna be something that's done on a PC or a server outside of the PanelView itself.
Could you do like a screenshot PDF?
Yeah, I mean, we solved the problem, but it was kind of a roundabout way.
Beyond just the kind of productivity tools we call on them, there's a lot of ways to get at your PanelView Plus 7 remotely. So there's two big ways that are built right in. VNC or virtual network connection is a way to, it's a micro server that's running on the PanelView itself. And so on a client, such as your iPhone, your iPad, your laptop, what have you, you can get a VNC client application and you can access your PanelView remotely. And it's more of a mirroring situation where what you see on through the VNC connection is exactly what the operator sees. You can actually go in there and make changes on the screen if you need to, but that's, you have to be careful with that. But so that's built in. So you can, instead of having to walk all the way down to where the PanelView might be, you can, once you have it set up and you have your security turned on and all that, you can get after it from your phone if you need to. Beyond that, it says my internet connection is unstable. There's an additional feature called Viewpoints, and I'll jump into that here in a second. In Viewpoint is unlike VNC, Viewpoint is a way, it's a separate product from Rockwell, but you get a built-in license for the PanelView Plus 7, where you can actually not only remote access into your PanelView Plus 7, but you can actually publish special screens when you're designing the application. You can take your current application and push it to the panel, but you can also set special screens that can only be seen through Viewpoint. So say you're, looking at the entire plant, you want to see, get reports or get special KPIs or other indicators from your panels. You can actually publish special screens that the operator can't see, that only you can see remotely through your any web browser or phone or whatever you have with a HTML5 web browser. And so it's kind of a cool concept. It's an additional software license if you're using it on FactoryTalk View Site Edition, but you do get one connection for free with the PanelView Plus 7. So it's something that's been there for a long time, and it's super powerful. But we get feedback that people either don't know about it or don't use it, so we want to get the word out. So moving on, give an overview of what the PanelView Plus 7 is, but we have some new things in the roadmap. And so something that came out a little bit last year is a hygienic model. So it's got stainless steel in the front. It's got a special food grade gasket around it. It's conformally coated. So in industries, food primarily or pharma, where it's humid, it's going to get wet, it's going to be a place where you can have a lot of wash down requirements. And so we do have the 9-inch and the 12-inch model in this that just came out last summer. So beyond this, we always get asked, the IP66 is fine. That's high pressure. Getting a little feedback. I love feedback, but we got asked for IP69K. IP69K is super high pressure, super high temperature washdown, and so we're enhancing this product to the 9 and the 12-inch to add that new IP69K certification. NSF seals on there. We're getting some hatch location certifications as well. So it's really targeting the food and bev. That should be coming out here in January of next calendar year. So anybody that's in tire rubber or anywhere that usually needs a conformal coat option. So what that really is all of the circuit boards and all the assemblies inside of the PanelView itself are coated with a special acrylic, I guess it is, that it seals everything up. And so what this does is prevent corrosion. And tire and rubber, it's extremely corrosive to anything that's got a printed circuit board. And so with the coating on there, it extends the life of the product for quite a while. And if anybody's familiar with the Control Logix models, that's just the K at the end of the catalog number. This will be kind of the K model of the PanelView Plus 7. And so it's gonna be on all the sizes you see there. And so a couple of them are out, and then a couple more will be coming out. Now that it's August, I have to update my internal calendar, but next month we'll be seeing additional models of these coming out. So anybody that's been using PanelView Plus 6 for a while, know it's been on the market for quite a long time. You know the Rockwell life cycle state of going active, mature, and towards discontinued and all that stuff. We try to give everybody as much advance notice of when a product line is nearing the end of its life. And so with that, we always have to talk about, well, what about the replacement? What do I do with the thing that I've been buying for maybe, several years? So for the most part, most of the PanelView Plus 6 products will be replaced by PanelView Plus 7. And so there's a couple gotchas in there. There's a few models of the PanelView Plus 6 that are going to be sticking around probably a little bit longer to get at certain industries. So we have, for instance, we have the hybrid outdoor model options. We have some additional conformal coat versions of the PanelView Plus 6. We have a couple marine certified panels. Those are definitely going to stick around until we have a good replacement on the PanelView Plus 7. And so all these things are into the 2020s, and so it's not that far away from now. But the longer lifetime product of these two will definitely be the PanelView Plus 7. So that's one we're still making a lot of investment in, and that's something that's going to be around for quite a while.
What's the OS you guys are looking at?
That's an excellent question. So Windows CE is running 6.0 is running on it now, and we're evaluating either going to one of the new Windows Embedded Compact operating systems or Windows Embedded or Windows 10 IoT Core. So one of the two, we're doing some technical investigation right now, but the absolute requirement from our end is to make sure there's not a disruption to people that are using the customers using the PanelView Plus 7 today. So make it a seamless. We don't want to make the OS a concern for PanelView. We want to take care of that in the background, have it fire up, run your application, and you don't have to worry. So it'll be something that will probably change if you're going out to the desktop and the extended features model today and making some settings in the OS. So that might change a little bit, just the look and feel, but the absolute compatibility is the goal there. But we're constantly working with Microsoft on this. This is something that they're invested in. They want to make sure that the transition goes well, and so that's we have several more years, and so that's a required change. So shifting gears a little bit. So PanelView Plus 6, PanelView Plus 7. Oh,
Just one question. On the software side, on the traditional PanelView 7s, are you going to start supporting the PLC-based alarms sometime?
the
LMPs,
the V30, 31.
Yeah, so right now, the way that they have it set up for FactoryTalk ME, it won't allow, and because of the alarm and events setup. So what he's talking about is the LMDs, ALMAs, and also the new logic-based alarm that came out in version 31 that we've talked about in the past. All of that will either be migrated to the PanelView 5000 family or natively exist in FactoryTalk View SE. So in terms of where we are with ME and the PanelView 7s, we would try to transition either to some type of thin client solution or move to the new family if it's a fit. But you know where I'm at.
So shifting gears a little bit, we were talking about FactoryTalk View, Machine Edition, FactoryTalk Studio, all that, the very mature product that's been out in the market for quite a long time. We, as Rockwell, we decided that adding additional functionality to that and some of the funny ways that we've had to implement features and how you actually develop applications got a little clunky at times. And there's a lot of things that we wanted to do to enhance that experience, but at the end of the day, we had to start from scratch on a completely new offering for HMI. And so take all this good stuff that we had a lot of experience doing in FactoryTalk, and start fresh, start with a clean code base, not something that's been kind of bolted on over the years and difficult to maintain. So at the end of the day, we came up with a brand new line of HMIs that's again built from scratch on the way you design it, on the way it integrates directly with Logix, and also new hardware. And so I'll kind of get into a little bit of what that is and why we made these decisions. So at the end of the day, it's also a complementary line to PanelView Plus 6 and 7. So those 7 is not going to go away anytime soon. If you're using it now, you love PanelView Plus 7, you love FactoryTalk View Studio. That's not going anywhere. We're still making investments there. We're still going to be seeing FactoryTalk 11 this year, 12, and so on and so forth. But as we go, deeper into the future, the PanelView 5000 line is going to be sort of the flagship product where we're making most of our investment on the development side. And so I'm going to talk about kind of where we are with the hardware, a little bit with the feature set that we have today, something that the stuff we're working on here in the next couple months, and then talk through the roadmap, because the key thing for this is the Logix integration. You know how Logix is on a V release. We're on V31 now. It's been 31 releases of Logix, since ControlLogix launched, and we keep adding things, adding functions, functionality to it at a yearly cadence usually. Sometimes it's a little bit longer than a year, but we are doing that with the PanelViews as well. So we're on V4 right now. These have been on the market, or the PanelView 5000 products been on the market for a couple of years now. So we've gone from V1 to V4. And V5 comes out here in December, and it's not necessarily for everybody right now, because if you think back to ControlLogix V4, that's a little bit before my time. It probably didn't do everything that V31 is doing today. And so you add on, we're trying to follow that same model, trying to get as quick as possible, but we're still, again, starting from scratch, adding stuff every year, and at a certain point, we'll hit critical mass with, this does everything that that a PanelView Plus 7 can do, plus more, and kind of flip over to being the main product line from us. But that's a mouthful. But at the end of the day, we have hardware that's out today. The 5310, the PanelView 5310, is part of that 5,000 number that we love. And that's if you're familiar with PanelView Plus 7 standard, it's the lower price point model. It's got a couple restrictions on the amount of controllers, the amount of screens, the amount of alarms. And so it's for smaller applications. We have a couple screen sizes there. I'll get into kind of the technical or the tech specs, but that's been on the market since December of last year. And so that's a really neat little product, and that's what I have in the demo kit. And also its bigger brother that's coming out this month. So the 5510 launches here in August. It's going to be additional horsepower, additional network connections on the back, dual port Ethernet. And so that's going to be kind of the PanelView Plus 7 performance type product, right? We have the two different options there, and everything is programmed in Studio 5000 View Designer. So if you've been playing with or using Studio 5000 V27 and newer, you have View Designer on your system today. And so these are the products you can use to use that software to program.
And one update to it also is the way to update the firmware on these new PanelViews is Control Flash.
Yep.
So that is going to make a huge difference on how we have to approach it normally with the settings.
Yeah, so everything that works, we hope reasonably well with Logix today. A lot of the thought process for Logix is going the same for the HMI. So it's going to be one big programming environment, Control Flash to program them, V releases for firmware, some of those common themes. We're trying to make it as tightly integrated as possible. So, as I said before, we've been on the market for a couple of years with this product. It's just been growing. Still in its infancy. And December 2017 was when we came out with the 5310. This month actually, will be the 5510, sort of V4 now. And in the future, will be in the December timeframe here, we're going to be a V5. V5 release, and I'll get into what V5 is going to bring. They don't give me the additional information on what's at V6, V7, V8, because I think those features it's always it's a living, breathing thing, which is going to get into each V release. The same thing happens with Logix. We get a certain amount of things in a V31 that if something didn't get in for V31, it's going to get into V32, or for redundancy, it's in between. And so, kind of get into what these are. 5310, there's a couple sizes. We have a 6, 7 wide, 9 wide, and 12 wide. So a couple options there. Again, kind of on the smaller size screen, DC power, single port Ethernet, but it's a modern single port CPU. It's an Intel Atom. base, it's very similar to it's the same family of CPUs that we're using with our new industrial computers. So it's a capable product there from the horsepower perspective. And I got to update the slides. So the 6-inch unit is out right now. Its older brother is the 5510. So we have additional screen sizes there. Something that's new for us is a 7-inch wide terminal. Device level rings built in. Dual core processor. We needed a little bit extra horsepower there to run the V5 feature set that's coming out later this year and then into the future. And so with that, there's a couple of key differences between the 5310 and the 5510. The 5310 is not hazardous location rated. It is, yeah, that's a big one. You know, I've been getting asked about that quite a bit this whole week. And so to get into the hazardous location environments, we'll be using the 5510 from this family. So at launch here, we're going to have UL Class 1 Division 2, and over time here, we're going to be adding ATEX, adding IACEX, adding Marine, adding Hybrides, adding outdoor rated ratings on it. So this is going to be kind of the flagship piece of hardware over time. So at launch, we're not going to have all those things. It's going to be things that we're going to add over time. And so similar to our, we're trying to not repeat where we had with the PanelView Plus 6, where only 1 or 2 of the screen sizes were outdoor rated or hybrid or marine. We're going to try to do that for the entire portfolio because, you know, one size screen might not fit for every application. So a lot of good stuff to come on that. You know, this it's not going to be, again, it's not going to be at launch here, but it's going to be something we're going to be adding over time.
The CSA certified as well.
Yeah, I believe so. That comes with our UL ratings usually. So I think those are kind of are glued together from when we do that. In addition to that, you know, we're adding on the KC for Korea, RCM for Australia and New Zealand, and EAC for, I believe it's Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan. So we want to make sure that these things can go on machines and get shipped and not get stuck on the border, right? And that's why we're adding a lot of the country-specific certifications. So something to point out, and I'm not going to bore you to death with tables and stuff. Is one of the key things about the 5000 line, and because we're so integrated with Logix at V27, that's when they started to incorporate the into the control Logix and compact Logix firmware. That's when it started knowing what the 5000 family of HMIs were. So there's a lot of stuff going on underneath the hood that I don't understand. They don't tell me about that. But at V27 was the magic release that added 5000 support, and that's why to use the 5000 family, you cannot use it for anything but before V27. And so I want to make sure that that's known. And so I'm not trying to hide that or anything. And so anything V27 newer, compact Logix and control Logix only, that's what those are the processor, the PLCs, PACs that work with the 5000. So there's a couple differences between the 53 and the 55 product I talked about. You know, DLR is not on the smaller terminal, and there's a couple software firmware things that are going to come on the bigger panel. PDF viewers, some of the V and some of the stuff like that are going to be on the bigger, the 5510 product. And so these are things that came with the V4 software or firmware release last December. And moving forward, we have to put the subject to change. You know, the software development process is sometimes, like I said, it's a living thing. It's an iterative process sometimes. But this is what we have in scope for V5 here at the end of the year. And so the big one here is we're adding additional screens to the 5310. We're adding additional controller support to the 5510. So a lot of work had to go in there to make sure that now at the L8 PLCs, I had to get a lot more work in there to make sure that was all the synchronization is going to go as you would expect. So the higher horsepower system is where you can get multiple controller support. Specifically, you know, the L8s were the challenge there. But above and beyond that, we get the web browser, video player, some of that other rich content stuff's going to come with 5510. Yeah.
Do they have support for the SORM? Can you pull out the SORM data from that?
That I don't know. Do we?
I think that's one of the things that they're working on towards 5 potentially. Right now it doesn't.
And that would count as an extra controller. I mean, did you have to establish the connections to that?
Right.
So even right now on the the 7s, it doesn't officially create a node connection to the, but it is a source that it brings in.
Okay.
So my assumption is either in 5 or shortly after that, that's going to be added in. So that has been a discussion point. What they have added for sure is the being able to do the data logs. So at least as a first step, they're now able to do data logs directly onto the module. But I think the next step will be also being able to connect to a historian. And then one quick note, so from a 1 controller to a 4 controller, obviously we are talking about this with Rockwell controllers only, so it does not have third-party protocol support. But you have to remember that if we bring in those protocols into a Rockwell controller, whether it's a Molex or ProSoft gateway, it's now a Rockwell protocol to the unit. So when we look at the architecture, that would be how we would end up looking at that. Where traditionally in a PanelView 7 world, we're able to go natively using Kepware that's built in. In this product, we would bring those data points in via the controller and use a either DIN rail mount or in chassis module to be able to convert that.
So back to the PDF, I mean, like on factory chassis, and I know that's not this, but we see a lot of print screens where something goes wrong, you want a print screen, and we solved that. So the reading is nice, but I still think you guys should think about that.
Okay. Yeah, it's possible it's not somewhere in the roadmap. We could follow up. I can get with the software development team to see where that is.
That's something that we added in recently.
So I got a couple big slides, a lot of big pictures about what some of the nice things about the way you navigate the panel. Some of the interface is a lot different than what you might be expecting with maybe plus 6 or 7. A lot of things you have to kind of do from scratch. With 6 and 7 with FactoryTalk, especially navigation bars, and just navigating around your application. There's a lot of custom things that we kind of force you to do because we don't include a really elegant way of doing it. And so with all the 5,000 products, we'll have a method of pulling up this screen you see on the navigation screen you see on the terminal there, and on the right hand side is what it looks like in the view designer side of things. So you can drag around what you want. Easy to put shortcuts to which screen you want. You can move it all around, and it's kind of an intuitive modern interface. On the 5510 and its predecessor here, the 5500, there's a button on the front that you can actually just press and just pulls up the navigation menu as an ease of use thing. On the 5310, there's not the button, but on the you can have that persistent bar that's there and get at that same exact information. So a lot of tools that built in there to save you time. Another thing that's always a pain is when something wireframes in FactoryTalk View. You don't always know what happened. Why did it happen? Why is it wireframe? Why are my graphics not showing up? What happened to the controller? Where did it go? And so in 5000, we kind of simulated an issue there on the left. All the objects that we include, every single one of them, you got to connect to the controller. The little red X will show up. All you got to do is press that little red X, and you'll see that window pop up. So in this case, it's a L75. There's a path there. You can where that controller is and see what's going on. So you can get it fixed, get it up and running. There's a lot of information that's available. It's all just built in. It's just automatically there. And on the right-hand side of the screen, you can kind of see some of the other configuration and status windows you can get at on the terminal itself. And it'll tell you about itself, how hot it is, what its IP address is, and all that stuff. Its version, firmware. You can do it all from just the screens. You don't have to open up the cabinet, look at the back, look at the catalog number, look it up on, PCDC or something like that, or call somebody about it. It's all right there. So that's super slick. So getting into a little bit about if anybody's gotten to go through one of the labs at maybe our Tech Ed or a Rockwell on the Move event, there's been a lot of labs about how to use excuse me, too many clicks, to use the view designer. And so this is the interface that we use to generate the applications that run on the 5000 family. Everything's, a lot of study has actually worked and been done on this, how many clicks it takes to do average task, this, that, and the other thing. I know there's been a lot of backroom sessions at our automation fairs where people actually, our user experience team will actually hover over people and do a study of is this a pain to do this, or is it easier to do it this way? Are options buried in a submenu with a submenu with a submenu? Like sometimes it can be with some of our software, or is it something we can just put a little button right there in the front? Just stuff, just get out in front of you, let you make the application, get done, and move on with their, the rest of your day, because everybody's got a lot of stuff to do. The interface is similar to kind of like a Visual Studio look and feel. So I'm sure we borrowed a couple things from Microsoft. So it's one of these things that until you actually fire it up and actually play with it, or go to one of the labs, or use it on one of the panels, it doesn't resonate with kind of how easy it is to use. And so that's just one of those things. That's why we had to do this from scratch. If we took FactorTalk Studio and just put a different skin on it, that would still be FactorTalk Studio at its core, and there would still be some of those tricky things to do. Tricky tribal knowledge, how to get something to work. And so everything's from scratch here, and it's a fantastic environment. Something that's a little bit different as well is how graphics are actually rendered on the panel itself. So you have View Designer there, you're making yourself an application, and because these are scalable vector graphics, you can take that same application and put it on two different, multiple different size screens, and it's going to actually properly scale. Whereas before, if you took a 10-inch screen and you tried to put it on a larger size panel, it would stretch, and when you take a bitmap graphic and you stretch it, you get a lot of jagged edges around graphics, or the other way around, it look all squished, and nobody wants to have to make the application twice. And so do it once, you can move it to different size panels. If it's from 4:3 to 4:3 aspect ratio like this, it's super simple. If you're going from 4:3 to 16:9, you probably want to adjust a couple things because you don't want it to try to stretch inappropriately, because everything should look good. But this is just a good example of how that works. And there's a little just call out there to we hired a bunch of artists and stuff and graphic designers, and they're part of that user experience team, and they've cooked up a lot of new graphics. Those are included. There's easier ways to add status changes. We have a little flashing tank there, animations, and all that stuff. So you forget all the pain points of FactorTalk Studio and how it was to put some of that stuff together. It's all just included.
Can you?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, can you import, say, vector graphics, maybe say Illustrator, and make your own?
I'd have to get back with the software team to answer it, because I don't know. I would hope so. If it's an SVG file or AI or Illustrator, I just don't know the mechanic of importing those graphics. So we'll have to get back. But just an example there, some of the older, it's sort of a minor point, but the graphics look a little bit more polished with the 5000. They've taken everything that might have little jagged marks around the fan blades there, and it's just smooth. It looks nice. It looks a little modern for the application when it's there. If you're building, ISA 99 products and projects, that's all grayscale, and it's just all those things are still there. It's just when we need a more flashy application, we get asked a lot from the packaging OEMs. Just give us something flashy, give us something that looks good, because there's a lot of competition out there, and so we're trying to beef up the graphics, just the capabilities there.
Yeah, we've gotten that from our Norway group. They've used a lot of LabVIEW for the interface, and some of their stuff looks really sharp. We've gotten close, but I know like the gauge on the lower left, LabVIEW has a really nice analog gauge that people like. Now we developed one under ISA 101 that tracks history and all that. I don't know if you've seen it, but it looks pretty good. But it's good to see that you're doing this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
PlanPX, is there any connection to that? Are they developing objects for this as well?
Yes. So especially with all our faceplates that we offer today on PanelView Plus 7, those aren't ready today. It's something that's being worked on here, and it's going to be part of a future V release. So the intent there is to make sure we have as many faceplates as possible. It's just the PlanPX ones are the behemoth to get those imported into the new system, but they are being worked on.
One of the things you might have noticed that, like for anybody that visited TechEd, they had a presentation on the machine building libraries. So one of the things that they're doing, especially with this new type of content, is they're readdressing how they do the libraries in general.
So not only just the process library objects, but everything that we had as a whole. So you've seen like the DLR, the power, all the different little toolkits. And what they've done is they started off with the machine builder library. So they broke it down into bits and bytes and different pieces. So you can do more of a modular code. And through application code manager, it'll tie in and create graphics for this. The idea is once they have all of that kind of leveled out, they're going to readdress the process objects and bring it into this type of environment, but make it a very similar look and feel where instead of one big block, it's individual pieces that you can like build up as you need them. So they haven't given us a time frame as far as like how long it'll take, but it is on the roadmap.
But you can still put like a global tag to all those
Yep.
things if you want to change them.
So while we're on graphics, so there's a new add-on graphics feature that's built in now that's similar to an add-on instruction or add-on profile. So more will be built on this, but allows you to put together graphics in a packaged and modular way, reuse them later in different projects. That's built in. So that same sort of logic's way of thinking is being applied to the HMI as well. So an extended take properties, you'll keep seeing the L7 and the L8s on these slides, but the more stuff that's being done in the controller just comes forward into View Designer. You don't have to do it twice. You don't have to set things up on the controller and then have to do it again in the HMI. It just comes right along. And so the more we add on the controller side, the more we're going to be getting on the HMI.
Is anybody here using that metadata for the extended tag properties yet? We got one. So the ability got added in with the newer versions of Studio 5000, where now you can add, let's say, engineering units and different pieces of information, but instead of adding it to your instruction logic or the actual code that you're running, so let's say you have a 3 meg controller, it doesn't use up that memory, it actually goes on non-volatile. So once we got into the L7s, especially the L8s of the world, we now have that ability of being able to offload it from your controller memory. So the PanelView Plus 7 has now been updated to be able to look at that. The PanelView 5000 and SC also accepts it.
Can you still change engineering units on the fly?
It's one of the little nice to haves is the multi-version support, and I think we're seeing this on the logic side as well, where you can have multiple different instances or versions of Studio 5000 on there on your system. If you need to support in this case, it's a version 3 application or version 2, or now version 4 or version 5. You can have the multiple versions on there without having to worry about uninstalling one and finding a system that's got the right version on it. You can just install it and handle all those projects.
So for anybody that's opened up or installed Studio 5000 after version 27, it now gives you different options on what you want to open, with whether it's Logix Designer, View Designer, which what we've been talking about, Application Code Manager, Factory Talk View SE. What you'll see here is a very similar look and feel to how you program in Studio 5000. So now you can open it up and have multiple versions of the View Designer installed on your box. And once you're going to load up a new application, you can pick and choose what version it opens up on. So think of having version 24, version 30, and 31 of Studio 5000 installed. When it asks for a new project, you can tell it what version it is, and they'll, in the background, it'll open up the right one. This does the same thing.
So data logging, it's a requirement now to have a capable HMI, and so this is just a screenshot of what it looks like, some of the settings and changes you can make, and so it starts it off with SD card, so you can take the contents there and use them as you wish. So I want to give those a shout out. Also, historical trending. This is something that came in before, and we got a lot of feedback between, about a year plus ago that, hey, trending is important. And we recognize that. And so I got prioritized, those added here in the latest view release. Here's just a screenshot of what it looks like. And as we kind of go from 5, 6, 7, in the future, those huge features are going to be added as we go. The emulator is built right in. Here's a screenshot of it, so you can actually in View Studio 5000 View Designer, you can get your application up and running, pull up the emulator and test it out. So that's really handy. VNC support, so we talked a little bit about that for the Panwe Plus 7. And this works the same way, where there's a VNC server built in, you can turn it on, you can set the read-only access, write-only access, all that security stuff, because you don't want just anybody going in there and seeing what's going on or making changes. And so VNC is another, there's a tie-in there with ThinManager as well, where you can actually see that content and mirror that content through ThinManager. And so Michael will be talking about that a little bit later on. Load from movable media. So there's an SD card slot again where we store our trends, and the simple explanation for this is just, if you make a machine and ship off a project and you have to make an update, you don't have to ask a technician or the end user to fire up Studio or control Flash or any which way to push a new update to the HMI. You can just pop in an SD card with the code on there and it'll load, and then you can store that as SD card somewhere else. So one of these little nice to haves, and it's implemented here. There's just a little screenshot of it. So this is a big one where not going to get too much into the take-based alarms and logic-based alarms, but it's a huge topic that we probably spend quite a bit of time on. But and as Luis was mentioning before, all the cool stuff we're doing in V30, V31 on the logic side of things is going to be accessible through the 5000 natively. And so all the memory savings that are going into all the new alarming capabilities of, especially the L8, you can just pull that in and get added from your HMI screen here, sort of automatically. So language switching, again, is something that's been there for quite a while. Probably it was a little bit tricky to use and not the easiest to get the languages in there and manage them. But we kind of did it in a new way. The interface, of course, on the left is in the View Designer, where you're setting those up. This is what it looks like on the right. This is what it looks like on the panel itself. We can demo that here on the demo.
That's the connection to the controller, right? That's not like a spreadsheet like that it used to be.
I believe it's a little bit different. So we have to double check on that because I want to make sure it's the right answer. But I know it's a little bit easier to manage the languages and switch between them here, and just very consistent with the fonts and how it's rendered and all that stuff. So I want to make sure it looks good. Not just the right language, but make sure it looks good. Okay, so I got my little creepy hand coming out from the bottom of the screen, but what this is, we have a high-speed jog button now. So you can have a class 1 connection as an on-screen button, up to 256 of them on the screen. So that's something that we're introducing here with PanelView 5000 family. Saves on wiring, saves on bill of material cost. My push button product manager friends don't like that idea. They want us to make sure they're selling a lot of buttons. But in certain cases, it makes a lot of sense just to put it on the screen. And so this is kind of a little demo of what that looks like. There's a new instruction there on the controller side, knows what it is in V27 and newer. That's one of those things that was added, and all the infrastructure in the back of what it's doing. So that's added in V27 and newer. And you can make a red arrow go over the motor like that. It shows up. So that's a super cool thing. Want to make sure that's called out here. So in summary, it's a completely new HMI. The existing HMI, the Panwe Plus 6 and the Panwe Plus 7 aren't really going anywhere anytime soon. So don't worry, we're not going to force you to stop using that and use this. But it's something that we've been working on for a couple of years now, and it's something that's going to be, as we continue putting in development time and investment and all that on our side, it's going to become more and more powerful. And so we want to get in kind of at the ground floor here. We have the hardware out. We have the new firmware releases coming right around the corner. So if there's something that this kind of new interface V27 controller projects that Ethernet IP based, let's have a conversation, because it's super cool and new, but something we're going to be building on over time. So with that, I'm going to switch gears a little bit. Any other questions on the 5000? Oh, way in the back.
Does it support SCP?
Recipe manager?
The recipe management.
I think they got
That's-
it added in 5.
Yeah, so that's,
I knew it was not supporting that. I'm not sure whether new version was that or.
okay, I have to double check to see where that falls in on the roadmap.
I think I saw something that it is getting added into 5, so we'll double check. I know they just updated the recipe manager in the 7, the PanelView plus 7.
Yeah.
So they made an update there at 10, and I think for version 5, but we'll double check.
So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. It's kind of a departure from our normal types of panel views where it's get installed in an enclosure or in a panel. This is and we're kind of switching now back to a factory talk view product. But what this is part of our on-machine offering. What Rockwell considers on-machine is something that does not need to go in an enclosure at all. It's completely sealed. It's IP65 and above. It's, my demo unit here is plugged into an IP65 sealed box with an IP65 power supply and all that stuff. And it's for customers that are getting rid of the enclosure, getting rid of panels altogether. Primarily, we see this a lot in automotive, where they don't want to have any of that. They want to have everything on the outside. So if something needs to be changed or reconfigured, they can just, unscrew the M12 and M20 connectors and change it around. And so what this basically is at its core is a PanelView plus 7 type product, runs PanelView plus 7 applications, PanelView plus 6, it runs Factory Talk View, a machine edition, and it's a handheld unit. And so why is it handheld? It's for applications that you potentially need line of sight to a robot arm or other machinery that you want to position. You see it's got an e-stop on there. It's got a hardwired e-stop. It's got hardwired enabling devices and built into the handle, sort of like a dead man switch. So once that's programmed in as part of your safety solution, you can use those and rely on those as a SIL3 solution to get back to a safe state. And so it's a little bit different than a normal panel view, because usually you would have to add the buttons in and e-stop and all that to your solution. So this is all kind of all in one. And so other ways to look at it is for long machines that you might, instead of having multiple panel views on it, I hope you use multiple panel views on it, but in case that doesn't work out for you, you can actually just move this thing around to different parts of the machine.
You have to have both hands on or just one?
There's a single enabling element there on the back. So it's a 3-position switch. So jumping ahead, these are you see the little black connector there. It's like kind of almost like an air compressor coupler. So that plugs in the front, so you can unplug it very easily and then move it. You can physically walk to the other side of the machine or other part of the plant and just plug into another junction box. So it's kind of it's a slick solution if you have the actual application that needs it. And so it's one of these nice to have products. It's not for everybody. We're not, I don't expect a million of these things to be out there. But if you have the application that needs it, you kind of know you need it. If you're doing robot, teach pendant type things, this is a product that can run that. Plus also run, the Factory Talk View natively on it. So I skipped over it. Thin Manager, you see the little Thin Man logo. There's also a model here that boots right into Thin Manager. So if you don't want to necessarily run Factory Talk View locally, when you have Thin Manager, you can hook it in and it'll boot right into Thin Manager and see all that content, and it'll be managed the same way as all the other Thin Manager thin clients out there. So we want to make sure we're trying to get as much of that integration as possible.
Normally, we would do that via some type of mobile solution. But in most cases, if you guys aren't able to support wireless infrastructure, or they just don't allow it in the plants or factories, that might be a tethered option where you can still do a thin client box that's tethered, but move that around. So that would be an option for us in that case.
So just one more, 2 more things here. So the e-stop is actually glowing, and so it's glowing. It's a special illuminated e-stop. So when it's on, it's powered up. That is an e-stop. If I unplug this thing, it goes gray, and then if it's gray, it's not an e-stop. So it was a requirement, from certain customers on that, where they didn't want to have one of these hanging on the outside of the machine unplugged and somebody thinking that's going to be an e-stop. So that's kind of a neat little element there. But beyond that, because you could have multiple junction boxes around your machine, you can actually program in a box ID into them programmatically, know if you're at box 1 or box 2 or box 6, and pull different content into your machine edition application. So just wanted to kind of throw that out there, and if you want to come and play with it, it does have a 1 meter drop rating on it, so please don't do that to my demo. I need to use it the rest of the week. But it's designed so in case you do drop it, it's not going to instantly crash or shatter. You drop your phone, you drop an iPad, you can have a bad day sometimes. But it's kind of built to absorb that. But up to 45C and all that good stuff. So it's in industrial inside and out. But the important one is the IP65 sealing. So it's going to be
hazardous though, right?
correct. This is that's a good point. So thank you. This is an ordinary location, non-hazardous location.
So if the e-stop is glowing when it's active, what do you see when you do press the e-stop?
So, so it's still an e-stop, and even if you press it. So I don't know if you can see on here, we do have a light on the front that's non-pressed, pressed, and then when you do, I'll try to do this one-handed. So it's unplugged. So it's kind of gray, clearish version color, and then try to plug this in one-handed as well. And then this guy is red. Now we got an e-stop. So it's booting up. So switching gears a little bit, again, to something a little bit different. Something that's near and dear to my heart since I'm one of the industrial computer product managers. But I'll kind of jump in here. Why use an industrial PC? We talked about it before, is life cycle. I don't think anybody, I like getting the newest. If I go and buy components or buy a PC pre-built, I want to get the newest of the new. But if I try to go back and buy the same thing 3 months from then, it's not going to be available. It's going to be different models. It's going to be slightly different. And so we try to get as long life cycle as possible. To keep it stable, because you don't want to be making changes to your machine to adjust for a computer, right? And so 24/7, 365 sort of type of operation. So using industrially rated components like solid state drives and RAM and all this stuff. All the vendors that make those things usually make an iTemp, as they say, version, and that's what we use in these products. And so that drives up the cost a little bit, but it's going to be we built in design, thermal margin and EMC and shock and vibe and all that stuff. So that's all kind of built in, especially when we're trying to stay fanless, right? Nobody likes fans. We don't like fans. We only use fans when we absolutely have to. But passive cooling is key. And so, with that, we can have the flexibility of Windows. We even use the embedded roadmap from Microsoft. So we get those long life cycle operating systems as well. And so it's for applications that not necessarily suited for PanelView where it's closed. You need Windows, and so we have some solutions here. And the coolest thing that we were able to get into very recently is thin clients, so Thin Manager. Yeah.
It says various form for communication protocols. Is that a spot for a SIM card or a 4G connection of some kind?
So that is usually, well, now it's all PCI Express card slots. So think, the softing PCI Express control net or ETAP card, device net, those sort of things. We don't support SIM cards or mini, some of the more other form factors. So if it's mini or if it's PCI Express, some PCI, we do support some of that. But if we want to do wireless or a modem, there's usually a USB solution out there. But primarily, the intent of that is just to talk about the open slot that you can put those cards in. So we have a couple of key users of our products that every system they use is they're converting from control net to Ethernet. So half the stuff they buy from us, a softing control net card goes in, and the other ones are getting with the ETAP. And so they rely on that to get the computer in part of their control system.
Are the stainless steel panel monitors, are the electronics isolated from chassis grid?
That's a good question. I have to double check and get back to you. So if we're kind of keeping a running tally of all the stuff, I got to go back to the development team and ask. I don't know off the top of my head.
It causes a problem for us because we ground fault everything. We run into a lot of monitors, and we gotta cut them open and cut the grounds out. Stuff like that.
I would assume they
It
would
still can still be grounded. Shielding, you still want the electronics to be part of the chassis.
So there's 3 classes of PCs that I'll talk a little bit about. There's a bunch of stuff that we don't have time to talk about today. But first and foremost, I got our newest kind of mid-range line of PCs. So they're for running applications that don't need a supercomputer. It's not going to be dumping a lot of heat, taking a lot of power to run. Everything's fanless. It's our newest offering, and so I'll get into what those are. We have our hazardous location systems. So those are the ones that are for the extreme temperatures, the -20 to 70 C. UL Class 1 Div 2, ATEX, IECEX, kind of the Swiss Army knife for PC-based hazardous location applications there. And again, kind of at the bottom there is our flagship model, the highest performance Core i3, i7 product that you can expand the RAM, storage, add in I/O cards and a bunch of different sizes and stuff like that. So that's kind of our the product that's been on the market for a while, and so I'm not going to be covering too much about that because it's not the newest thing, but I want to kind of position what runs on these. So I'll skip through there. A little bit about our hazardous location computer here. We just refreshed this. If anybody was using it before or was familiar with it before, it was a kind of an older Intel platform that we limped along as long as we could because of the certification aspect. We didn't want to have to go and change things on it and recertify. And so we got to the point that from Intel that they said, hey, here's your PDN, or here's your product change notice on the chipset and the CPU. Better start working on a replacement. So we took the box we had, the system we had, we went from a Core Duo to an i3, a relatively modern i3, got more RAM, more storage, more performance out of the systems, more operating system support, because we were limited to 32-bit operating systems before. Now we've got 64-bit. We've kind of modernized it, but we kept things the same that we knew worked well, the mechanical bezel, the power supply, and all that stuff. We didn't change that at all because we didn't want to upset the apple cart with UL and ATEX and all that stuff. So with that, we added the PCI Express slot versus we had PCI before. Oldie Softing, they don't really make a lot of the PCI cards anymore that we rely on for this. So we went to the PCI Express as well. So with that, that it's a 12-inch integrated display touchscreen, or it's a non-display model. So you can then take that and hook it up to hopefully one of our UL C1D2 monitors, or another display, or whatever display you need to get in the hazardous locations.
So what do you do with your recent malware, the Spectrum, related to your CPU?
So there's a I don't want to be
Can you repeat the question?
Sure. The question was about the Spectre and malware and all that stuff that came out that impacted pretty much any Intel product in the last several years. So there is a general Rockwell statement on this. We have an official one that's on our knowledge base, and these computers are referenced there because they are Intel based. So we can refer to that. But at the core of it, we're incorporating the Intel microcode updates into BIOS updates into the products. And so Intel has been, they have a lot of work to do to give us the updates that are needed into the BIOS. And at first, they didn't work so well. And so we're in the process of testing out the latest updates, and then we'll be incorporating them into a BIOS update.
Just in the future.
Right. So it's an ongoing thing, and I know there's different variants of those vulnerabilities that keep coming out. So it's kind of a moving target right now. But the intent is to get those updates once they're finally fully tested by Intel and all hardware vendors, and we'll get those into the BIOS. So kind of moving to the mid-range offering, the brand new VersaView 5000 family. So it's a whole portfolio of products that we've been launching over the last year or so. But it's a new set of monitors, new box PCs, new panel PCs, new box thin clients, new panel thin clients. So it's a whole family of product that we've come out with. They're all I say new because it's not necessarily just a refresh of something that we had before. So usually we'll take, similar to the hazardous location box, where we'll make incremental updates, keep everything the same, and move it forward. But this isn't one of the instances where we're bringing out something completely new. And so it's somewhat rare for us, but we did it to, there's a lot of benefits there. I'll jump into that.
How long have these been on the market?
So the monitors launched in February of this year. The thin clients came out between last June, so about a year, and the panel PCs came out last October. So a total of 40 catalog numbers that we've launched here, and so it's been, we had to do a little bit of a staggered release, but so in the last 12 months, all those came out. So starting real quick with the monitors, we have an example of one of the displays here. This is one of the integrated display PCs acting as a thin client, but all the integrated display models that have it's kind of a radical difference for us, where it's a single pane of hardened glass on the front. It's edge to edge glass. It is multi-touch. It's all widescreen. There's fewer little places for dust and debris to collect, so they're easier to keep clean. And so all the monitors, all the panel PCs, and all the panel thin manager thin clients all use the same displays, and so it's kind of consistent design across all that. The monitors are IP66 NEMA 4X with a stainless steel band around behind the glass, so it's actually is a stainless type product, which if you don't need to do caustic wash down, it works. We don't necessarily make you buy a stainless steel model anymore. It's all just built in for these. So those will pair up with pretty much any computer out there, or any computer-like device, and pop it in your panel and you're good to go. The PCs, this is the Intel Bay Trail family of processors, and so this is a wildly successful family from Intel. It's the same ones we're using in the MoView, same ones we're using in the PanelView 5310 and the 5510. So it's one of these things with a very long roadmap from Intel. So you get a lot of work done with the quad-core CPU that we're using here. Windows 7 Pros, Windows 10. Again, all fanless, no moving parts. We even use a big supercapacitor in there instead of a battery. So it's nothing's going to leak, nothing's going to, you have to go in there and change. So the two kind of classes of product here, we have the integrated display. Again, 12-inch, this is one of the 12-inch wide. It goes up to a 22-inch wide full HD on the 22-inch model. Multi-touch projected basket screens. And on the box PC side, it looks exactly like the one right here. It's got, you can hook up to two 1080p monitors and run your application. Very, very simple PC. So with that, you kind of just zoom in of what the ports look like. These are all DC, 12 to 24 volt DC on the box, and then 24 volt nominal on the panel. And the slide looks almost identical to the PC because it's the same hardware, and it's a modular design on the inside from the factory. So we're able to go from a quad core down to a single core for the thin manager thin client, remove some of the RAM, remove the solid state drive. So you don't need any of that stuff for thin manager. There's no local storage here. And if there is something that happens to the system, you don't have to worry about reimaging it. So Mike's going to get into that a good amount on the thin client side, or thin manager side, excuse me. In addition to that, we've kind of rolling through a roadmap of products here. So we have the dual display that we've had for about a year. We just came out with this little baby brother here, the single display. So again, these are all industrially rated thin clients. They're not designed to fail like some of the commercial grade ones out there. So they're still going to last 24/7 and operate at the extent of their spec. So again, we're taking a close look at the certifications. The PCs and thin clients as we have them today are not hazardous locations, but we do have some things in play. I'll get to in about 3 seconds. But, so as soon as we released the thin clients, people started yelling at me that I don't support 4K resolutions because the Intel Bay Trail family does not support 4K. And so we had to solve that because more and more 4K screens, we're putting more and more content on the making more of these big industrial TVs or flat panels. And so in the next couple months here, we're going to be having a dual 4K thin manager thin client, and then one that supports up to 7 displays. So all 4K. So it's kind of a screenshot of our family here. On the first 3 columns of the products that are out today, and it's been out for a little while. And then the new ones coming out a little bit later on this year in January of 2019 are on the right-hand side. So yeah, up to 7 displays with that one. So it's going to come in 3 or 7. And we're working closely with the Thin Manager, the Rockwell team that develops Thin Manager to support up to 7 displays. So that's not a current feature of Thin Manager today, so we're getting that added just for this release. And something else that we're working on here right around the corner is we're taking the existing thin client in box VC, we're getting it through its paces with UL and Demco for the ATEX side of things. So we're going to be adding hazardous location here, adding additional certifications, BIS for India, and we're also taking a close look at marine certifications. What do we got to do to get this box marine certified? So it's kind of pending the feedback we get from that investigation. But then aside from that, we talked a little about conformal coating before, tire and rubber, and so we're going to be getting a conformal coated version as well. That'll be sort of the K model. That'll be a separate catalog number, and they'll have the additional protection for the corrosive environments, in addition to all the hazardous location stuff on there too. So real quick, overview of FactoryTalk version 10. I can't stress how much investment is still going in FactoryTalk ME and SE. We get 10 in the fall. We're going to get 11 here this year. We can get 12 and so on and so forth. So the FactoryTalk View, both Machine Edition and the Site Edition SE, is not going away anytime soon. And so it's kind of a lot of little text on here of all the stuff that they added in 10, but there's going to be a similar type launch here with 11.
So we've done a couple updates with you guys on 10 and just what they did with the version 31. So the big one is we now support OPC UA. We changed the way that we do redundancy for the FactoryTalk View SE platform. So now it's an active primary and secondary versus how we had to do it in the past where the secondary was kind of passive. And also the ability of being able to do those logic tag based that we've been talking about on what came out with version 31. So if you guys have any questions regarding 10, just let us know. We can either just do a little show and tell, or we can just get you some information.
And with that, there's a knowledge base, the Rockwell knowledge base. There's a nice demo application you get. Comes with the ACD file to hook up to your controller. And if you want to step through what came in 10, there's also there's a self-guided tour. So that's there, it's available. Beyond that, we've been putting a lot of videos and content out on YouTube. So things that we've got pinged about all the time, stuff that people call tech support about. We don't want to have to make you call tech support. It takes time. The tech support people are nice, but you don't want to be talking to them, unless you have to. So we're putting a lot of content about, specifically around FactoryTalk View, PanelView, how to upgrade from this to that, from this version of View to this version of View, how do you convert, all that stuff. So check out our channel on YouTube. We're adding stuff all the time. We don't want to make you go through a 600-page reference manual either, because that's not a lot of fun. Puts you to sleep. So just want to give a shout out for that. It's out on YouTube. It's all free. I think that, and just one shout out, Philadelphia is our automation fair this year. Last year was right down here. So I hope everybody was here and got to go to that. But next year is going to be up in beautiful Philadelphia in November. We want to stay inside and see all the cool stuff that's coming out. Some of this stuff will be there. Well, all the stuff you see on the screen, some of the stuff we weren't covering here in the slides. So it's kind of a lot of cool stuff to see and say hi to Billy. With that, I think I'm run out of slides finally. So we got to transition over to Mike and Thin Manager and do a bio break.
All right. So real quick, I have actually 2 slides. All right. what we're gonna do is a live demo. Ooh. Ooh. So we're gonna do a live demo. And what we're gonna focus on is, you know what? I'm gonna take this off. It's too much, and I'll talk about it. I'm hearing myself too much. And it's gonna annoy me. So there, you can all hear me, right? Perfect. If I have to go louder, I will. If you want me to go quieter, I will. All right, so what we're gonna show is, you heard a lot about our hardware offering. So I wanna talk about, how do you manage that hardware? How do you manage hardware within your environments? And depending on where you are, your customers' environments, whatever the role you play in your career. So we're going to talk about that, but one of the products that kept on being mentioned is Thin Manager. That's what I'm going to talk about. Thin Manager is a product that Rockwell purchased in 2016, September 12th. That was actually the company I was working for. Be clear, the company I was working for, not the company I own. As most people ask me, why are you still working? So I was with that company, and fortunate to be with that company. Rockwell acquired us, and now I'm continuing to talk about not only that Rockwell Thin Manager product, but also how it connects to all our hardware, our connected enterprise, et cetera. Okay, so we're going to spend time in it. I know we have a hard stop at 1:30. I promise you we'll be done at 1:30. Okay, because there is a situation I want to make sure I'm clear on in delivering. It's not that difficult. I shouldn't spend a lot of time on that for you. Chris had a lot to cover. That's why I didn't need much. He had a lot of different products that he's covering. I'm going to talk about a product, a platform. It's a software. I'll use different terms, but I want to make sure you're clear. It is a software that I consider a platform that can manage your devices, your environment, your users, your locations, mobile devices, all of that. So I have two asks. One, if you like what you saw, get with your Reynolds contact, get with Rockwell contact, whoever your contacts are, and have them come out to your facility. And they have this thing we call the mid-range demo. It has a 2012 server, it's cameras, badge reader, a small environment of a plant, okay? Just to give you an idea of different pieces and parts. Have them come out and do that. If you like what they did, ask for a demo code. Get a license, try it in your environment. Those are my two asks. Okay, so I'm going to go through it real fast, show you some things because, again, it's very, very simple. And we don't need the lights on for that. And we more need the lights on to be able for you to see you and our guests that are remotely. I want you to be able to see what's happening here. Okay, the hardware I'm using is the single connection point, the VersaView that Chris was talking about. So I'm using our hardware. And I'm going to show you how to manage that hardware. So what I'm going to go over very quickly, I'm going to use terms that maybe you're used to or not used to, but I want to be very clear on that. I'm going to talk about content types. Thin Manager happens to be the platform. It's a Rockwell product. That's what's in the middle. And then over on the side, we're just talking about how we can deliver the content. But the first thing I want to focus on, because that's what today's about, is about hardware. How do we manage that hardware? So I'm going to ask a question, not for you to answer it, but just think about what happens today. And I'm just going to do it. What happens today when you lose power? Let me show you what happens if you're using Thin Manager. And I'll talk through it. Thin Manager is sitting on a server or a pair of servers in a redundant environment. They're communicating with these terminals that we have to set up once we get in the interface. And we have to configure that. It has to push out the appropriate drivers for the different components we have connected to it. Think of Thin Manager, that platform, as a little bit of an OS. Right now, that's a good sign. One of the wonderful things, second wonderful thing Rockwell did is when they bought us, they changed that color. Because guess what color it was? Truly the blue screen of death. So if you're the presenter, and I like to look at people's facial expressions, not to see if they're awake, to see if I'm connecting with them. And if you could see what I saw, everybody looked at it and said, that guy's demo failed. Because what they saw is multiple screens like this, and it going across the screen, and it was blue. But what they didn't know is that download progress bar was a good sign. Okay, but we made that a lighter color. Through that process, it's loading up the different firmware. I'm sorry I can't shadow that, but it's loading up the firmware and it'll be up in a second here, literally 60 seconds. That's why I asked the question, not for you to answer, but to think about. We're back up and running because that's managed by Thin Manager. Now, why did it do that? How did it do that? All those things we can do on a demo, but I'll just tell you what it's called. Pre-execution environment, Pixie boot. But there also is another way of doing that. And Chris talked briefly about it. And that is what I'm going to call Rockwell Thin Manager Ready unit. What does that mean? It means the BIOS is already in the device. What you have to do is you have to physically go plug a mouse in their keyboard, what have you, get in there, go into the BIOS, change the IP address to be static. So if you want to manage your IP addresses, you can do that. Another method is, and I'm going to say this from a mixed use environment. If you're not using our product, you're using other products or even using PCs, you want to use your existing equipment to jump into a platform like Thin Manager, you can do that. You don't have to get rid of the existing information and hardware that you have unless it's less than an 86 or better processor. Someone challenged me and said, what about my 386DX computer? And I said, I had one too. That's about the only thing I could give them. We're probably not going to work with that. But anything that has the ability of going in and changing the bootload to view Pixie, you have a good chance of that working. And the reason being is we're not asking you to rip out everything to use Thin Manager. I will also say, and I'm a Rockwell employee in a Rockwell building, Thin Manager does not know applications. It's not application specific. So if you're running something besides Rockwell, we'd like to talk to you about our other offerings. But bottom line is it doesn't matter to Thin Manager. It also, and this is all straightforward stuff, is it also does not know if somebody, and I have to say it this way, is having a good day or not. They can accidentally shut the application that's running on that terminal. And Thin Manager will gracefully shut it down and successfully boot it up. If the person continues to do that, hopefully somebody's going to intervene and say, hey, you got to stop doing it. But Thin Manager doesn't know it. It keeps it up and running. It's a visualization platform. It's very, very robust, very lightweight, very easy to manage. Okay? Have I built it up enough to go to the live demo? All right, here we go. So this is going to go fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch my remote session. So right now what I'm doing is I did an RDP session into my server. My server is in the back here. I'm running some virtual machines. I'm running something that is called RDS1, Remote Desktop is my one name of my server. My other server is called HMI. Both those servers, one could be physical, one could be virtual. Both those servers, okay. Both those servers are running applications. You good? You still see it? Okay. All right. So both those servers are running the applications. That means if something fails, which I'm going to lead to right now, if something fails, we want to make sure that the application is still running. So here's what I need you to trust me on. Forget what I'm doing here because you're seeing it up there. I want you to focus on what's here. And the reason being is this is your plant floor environment. This is IT, this is OT, this is control room. You're going to see what I'm doing up there. There won't be anything that I'm not showing you. But what I'm going to do on purpose is fail one of my servers. Okay? But failing one of my servers, I want you not to look at this device. I want you to look at this monitor. And I'll know if you're not. Because I'll ask somebody what happened. Now, most people are not trusting me, and they focus on this because it's a nice looking product. This is just a inexpensive portable monitor that I use so I can do my demonstrations as I travel around the South region. But I want you to see what happens when the server fails. Is this the ultimate solution? No, I want to show you why you don't want to configure it this way, but you got to see what failure looks like to understand what success always needs to be. All right. And I apologize, I will be putting these cheaters on because if I have them on the whole time I look at you, you're blurry and that won't look good. All right, here we go. So I'm going to set up a scenario. And the scenario that I'm going to set up is I'm going to fail this. I'm failing this. This is the VersaView 12-inch. Here we go. Fail. Okay. Now here's interesting. Do you remember what was on that screen?
Yeah.
It wasn't that.
No.
Was it?
No.
It's another server, and that's where that server was left the last time it failed of that application. It's the same application. Okay, we can't go on the same application to the same screen because you might have changed something before the failure. What I'm going to do is everything, and this is called incident failover. But I have to fail it so you can see what's going on. Now I'm going to enable it. More than welcome to look at this this part now. See what happens? It's the same application. It was just in the screen that it was before, which is more the overview or whatever we had it in. Where the other one was more, what was that called? Dashboard. Why is that important? That's important to make sure that you have some form of failover with your hardware and with your software. Okay? Because if not, you're out the information. Nothing resides on these devices. There's no data on this at all. When it dies, you're out the appliance. You're out something, but you're out the appliance. And you're only out the appliance, and I was talking about our product, is the only way these are going to die, misuse or a forklift or whatever, you know, what type of product you make. Everybody has their version of what it is. Okay? So, questions so far? So what I'm doing, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because again, sensitive time, I want to show you replacement. The content that's being delivered is sitting somewhere. We've set it up, and you would do is you set up all these terminals. So the terminals are set up, and I just called this one plant floor. I created a group, a hierarchy, called it a group, and then I created below that locations in that group. These locations, I'm calling them the name. Makes it real easy because this is the VersaView 12-inch. This is the VersaView product. I didn't want to call VersaView single monitor, new product, you know, none of that. It just VersaView 5200. That's what this is. But here's what I'm going to do. Our product did not fail. Let me just be very clear. But I'm going to show you what happens when you enter a new product into that same area. Okay? So the VersaView did not fail. I normally take another product and make that fail. And then I say, oh, let's replace it with the 5200. What I want to show you is something Chris was talking about, not an industrial grade, but a commercial grade. So this is an Intel Nook. It's a very inexpensive. The problem with it is it's got a fan. Problem with it is it's not industrial grade. The biggest problem about it is depending on the environment you're in. If you're in an industry that has a lot of particles in the air, it becomes not just a device. It becomes a shop vac, and it sucks in all that information. That's the problem with fan-based that are non-industrial devices in these type of environments. Your environments that you're in have to be that way to make the great products that you make. And it's not a sales pitch. That's the reality. And so how do we do that? That's why we got the conforming coding and all that going on. But again, how does your content get delivered? If you're running multiple operating systems, you're running multiple systems, let's look at that. If you're already running remote desktop or what is called VDI, virtual desktop infrastructure, let's talk about that. We can push that through Thin Manager, but again, you're managing a bunch of operating systems and you're managing things that probably you could have a better way of doing it. So here's what I want to do. How easy is it to push content? I'm not a fan of this, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to deliver a virtual desktop. Where do you want it? Here or here? You want it on a 12-inch or you want it on that gaming monitor? Someone's got to tell me because I got to put it somewhere. Gaming monitor. All right. Here we go. It's very simple. I go to the gaming monitor on the terminal. I double click, couple clicks. You know, I'm doing it fast on purpose. Should be up in about 5-10 seconds. Don't let it come up. There it is. It's a virtual desktop of someone's profile. That's what's being delivered there. I can deliver up to 25 applications on a monitor. Now, that's probably not what your operator needs. I can do 4. I can do 4 applications. You probably have multiple monitors at a station. Get it. You can still do that. As Chris said, 7. We're up at 6 right now. We can do up to 6. Okay. We also have another feature. If we have time, I'll run through it. It's called virtual screen. But again, all this can be done at your facility. It's amazing when I do these at our facilities here. People have, you know what, let's do it at my facility because then I don't feel that there's Rockwell magic behind it. But you can do virtual screen, which is multiple screens virtually on a screen that are actually independent monitors. And every one of those independent monitors can run up to a 5x5 grid of applications, which the first thing someone says is that's a lot of applications. Just telling you what you can do. It's all software driven. Our hardware is pushing it out to the monitor, but you might not need the 7 4K. But if that's what you want, we're coming up with that hardware. If you want 4K, we're coming up with that. It's all about the resolution, 3840, 2160. But that's what you have there. How about this? This isn't even set up yet on purpose. How about if I take my company badge and I come in and I assign maintenance, Matt, I'm going to get the work order and I need to verify this for you to see it. If I go to a user, the way I have it set up is Matt's part of the maintenance along with Mary and Mark. Watch what happens. We're going to shadow this so everybody can see it. Come in, asks for a passcode. I come over, single character. I usually make this interactive when I have a little more time. So somebody comes in, no, you don't want to do a single character.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've done more than a single character and let someone else do it, and they typed it wrong, and then it made the demo go bad. So a single character makes the demos go much better. But that's multi-factor authentication. That's something I have, something I know. But did you see me reboot the server? Did you see me do anything with the server? No, I did everything here. All I did was accept it. I didn't have to reboot anything. It's all dynamic. It's happening. That's as easy. You can get rid of them. They lost their badge, or there's a disgruntled employee, or you need to add a badge to something. You add that content. You set all that up as a user profile. There's profiles you set up. Terminal profiles, location profiles, user profiles. It all ties into Active Directory integration. It all ties in if you're using our Factory Talk view. It all ties into our authentic pass-through, our Factory Talk securities, all of that. I mentioned that it would work on other programs, even potentially other HMI companies. They've chose not to do that. Again, Thin Manager's still a product, right? I know it's a Rockwell product, but again, those are things that are happening. So if you've used Thin Manager, you know people are using Thin Manager, we've extended the olive branch. They're not willing to do it. So I just want to let you know that's something pretty cool. Yes.
So we're currently using Thin Manager.
Yes, sir.
And we have some projects coming up where we're putting IP utility cameras subsea. And in the past at Oceanary, we just throw a separate monitor in the control van.
Okay.
We're running RTSP, and we've heard we can do this, that we can put it right onto the Factory Talk SCHMI.
Correct. I'm going to make that a question and a statement. Yes, you can do that, and it's currently being able to be done. What you do is you can overlay it anywhere you want. You set that up within Thin Manager. Okay. You set that up wherever you want. Okay. In fact, you can take it one step further, that if an alarm happened, you can have it pop up. Okay. And again, it's something not only for the operator to see, control room, administrative, whatever your capacity is, additional, that you have those rights to see that? Absolutely. Okay. So we have ActiveX control, all of that's tying in together. Okay. Yes. Thank you. So just so you're more welcome. So the product's been around since 1999. Not just, it didn't just happen. Right? So we were a separate company. We actually were a system integration firm and all that. And I tell that story until we're about 2 years, Rockwell, then the history doesn't matter. The history is about what have we done since being a Rockwell product. And we're continuing to advance the product. And like you say, users like yourself, there's a lot of functions and features that even if someone gave you a demo, they're only going to be able to give you a 15% of what it can do. Because you unlock what that is within your environment. You decide what you're going to use or not use. Okay. Let's see, a couple other quick things here. So I have the ability of adding multiple contents to something. Here's my VersaView device. I have a VersaView device where I can go and touch screen. I could calibrate that if I wanted to. So typically when you get a display, you got to take it out of the box, you got to boot it up, go through the process. Through Thin Manager, I think it's a great feature. If you're seeing a lot of stuff goes through Thin Manager, and Chris mentioned a lot about Thin Manager. We happen to be in the same business team now. Before we weren't. We were a separate company there, and we were integrating with the business unit. But once we got purchased, that's where we ended up. So right now it's asking to be calibrated. All I'm gonna do is come over here and calibrate it through Thin Manager, store it in Thin Manager, and it's ready to go. That quick, that easy. Nothing special had to be done. Okay, so it's about the biggest thing that Thin Manager is, and what I want to make very clear is what I'm showing you, the little bit I've showed you so far. We're seeing content we haven't talked about. I'm going to show you that real quick. There are other solutions that do content delivery. I wouldn't be up here presenting if that's all we did, because you can do a standard remote desktop. You could use other hardware companies' client management. It's more than that. We're the only product that manages content, users, devices. But I started off by saying device management. How are you managing your devices? So I'm going to show you why we delivered the application real quick, and then I'm going to truly fail a device. So I forgot what I told you was going to happen, but something actually happened to the device. Maybe a forklift hit it. Okay, but Chris, our product did not fail because it's industrial and it's a heat sink, right, Chris? All right. So here's what I want to show you real quick. There's a feature. Everything I'm showing you is a feature. On this VersaView, we have a display client pushed out. Well, let's look at that display client. That display client right now is here. It's doing a remote desktop. And we have a feature called App Link. If you're familiar with FactoryTalk View, there's a file, and the extension is CLI. The CLI file is the file. So you have the executable side, the execution, and then the program, and then CLI file. And that's what we're delivering up there. Logic is the ACD file. You could actually cut from the quotes down and put the command lines if you want. I just wanted everything on one particular line. I'm pushing out what I would call the graphical interface to be very simple to it. I'm not pushing out a whole program. I'm pushing out what the operator needs, what he or she needs to see to then operate, right? That's what here, that's what I'm pushing, the CLI file there. That's what's there. Not a full-blown program, not a full-blown desktop, not a full-blown OS, none of that. Just the CLI file. And that could be on a pair of servers. You decide where that is. I don't care how many servers you're doing it. Thin Manager just needs to be, if you want full redundancy, be on 2 different servers. Doesn't have to be our own servers. It can be some stuff you already have. If you're not sure about that, do a network assessment with Reynolds and Rockwell. Let us come out and talk to you about that. Okay? So that's how we're delivering that. I'll tell you all that just to build up this. So what I'm doing is I'm disconnecting what's connected in here. So you're out the appliance. Make sure I plug everything that needs to be plugged in. So what I'm going to do is grab this other device, and I'm going to plug in the appropriate cables to get back up and running. Okay, plug in a couple other things here. And now all we're going to do is power it up. Now, this is going to ask a couple questions because we're doing a demo. This is not what you would normally do in your environment. We'll power it up. Well, again, we're just going to have to see this. We cannot shadow a boot up when you're replacing something. So right now, it's going to do its normal, hey, everything's great, blue screen, download progress bar. But here's what changed. What changed, and I'm going to go before we finally get there. That MAC address that was just there was 8008. That's the identifier. The only thing that's changed here, soon to be, is the hardware. I'm not going to change the content that's being delivered, any of that. And before I answer the question, no one's asked, so I'm going to tell you, why am I delivering it that way? Again, Chris talked about hard coding, Thin Manager ready, BIOS, all of that. I'm using what is called PXE, pre-execution environment. There's a PXE server within Thin Manager. You're communicating there. It's a checkbox right up here. By me checking that, it's allowing to look for this device has no OS. This is not a Thin Manager ready device. This is an off-the-shelf that you have or a computer. And what we're saying is that allow those 10.6.10.51 is my server. So my range that I'm going to do from a DHCP is going to be 10.6.10.110 to 119. When I go here, that's what you see there. Now, here's what I'm going to do. Just hit finish. It's asking me on purpose. It's asking me right here. It says mobile devices. Is this a mobile device for this plant floor? Does not have to do that, but those are my choices in my tree. So I'm going to say plant floor. You want an Android or VersaView? That's my choice. That's what's only available to be delivered to that terminal. I can't get on accident what's at terminal 11. It's not available. We didn't program it. It's not set up. It's not a profile that's available. You also can limit if this terminal goes down, not to replace it. There's a checkbox. There's so many different things you can do. See how quick that was? Anybody time it? 2 minutes. Takes you longer to go get the device than doing it.
So no smoke break or coffee break.
Yeah, it was interesting. I had a gentleman come up to me and he said, I'm a little disappointed. I said, what's that? He goes, I like to go check out the humidity outside. I said, I work with a coworker that checks the humidity. I know where you're going. I can't help you with that. That shouldn't stop that. And his point was, man, it's a lot quicker than what I'm used to. So it's a good thing. He was being humorous and I accepted the humor, but the reality is, there you go. It's that quick. Questions? Concerns, complaints?
So one thing Mike showed that you guys might have missed is the fact that when he logged in with his badge, it had a timeout period on it. As soon as that timeout period ended, it went back to that same client that he had originally. So you guys can program what the read-only or the operator login is. Have somebody badge in for maintenance, administrator. It's all different content with multiple pieces of connections on it. And as soon as you log out, whether that's a timeout period or somebody manually logs out, they'll default back to that one aspect that we're looking at.
Yeah, that's the inactivity. So inactivity, it'll prompt you. All right, it'll pop and say, two people I can't log into the same, I can't be in the same place and log in 2 different times. My mobile device, it's going to log me off somewhere else. But if I log in somewhere else, it's going to log me off where I am here. So you have that inactivity. You also have caching. So do you have to badge in all the time? Depending on your role, might be you don't. Or if you have a visiting system integrator or a Rockwell employee, somebody coming by, you have the ability of doing that. Some newer features is the ability, we support 2016. People say, well, that's because we just came out with this new release December 18th. So we have 2016. We support pin code. So now you have the ability to do a pin code. There's a lot of people that, clean rooms, they have at least a numeric, they have a pin code versus the alphanumeric. They can't type all this stuff. You can actually do that. Biometrics. We're working on retina and facial recognition. And Luis's favorite that he brought up yesterday on a scenario like this, for those of you that are online, Luis was online for this one, and I figured we were done with questions, and then the last question came in. And what was your question?
What are we doing with augmented reality?
And I wanted Luis to answer that question, right, for the audience. But I'll tell you, some incredible, in closing this, incredible stuff. Where does it fit? Where does augmented reality fit in your business in general? Who knows, right? But as far as can Thin Manager do a lot of these things? Yes. Can it do mobility and resolve-based information? Yes. Can it go up to a QR code, which is standard code? Now, I want to tell you, not the annoying codes that when you walk into a mall or a store, like when I check into my hotel, it's telling you everything that's going on in Houston. I didn't ask for that. That's not what I'm talking about. It's not that kind of push notification. Similar, but when you're in your environment, you decide what that is. Whether you enter that zone, we call that zone or location, or you actually do something with Resolve where there's an action. You scan a QR code and you get information. That's something you can do on the motor and get the frequency drive PDF, schematic, HMI, work order, as opposed to going to the filing cabinet and it already being checked out. Or as some people say, the wrong filing cabinet, the wrong folder. I like the positive one. It was checked out. So digitize it. Be able to see it. Be able to now be able to see different parts of the motor, things that are going on. We're moving in a lot of places, and we're moving very fast. And A big focus has been on visualization, virtualization, smart manufacturing, newer equipment. That's how we're trying to tie that in. Thank you for your time. Appreciate you coming out today. Appreciate you checking in online as well. If there's anything more we can do, if there's something we can do different on these type of events, let us know. But with that, thank you.
I appreciate it, guys. So, clap. You didn't clap for me last